Hi everyone, and welcome to the Purl Girl Knits Podcast, episode 15. I am Catherine, your host. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry under Purl Girl Knits, and you can also go on the Ravelry groups page to find the page for this podcast. So, it's been a while. Summer has been a little bit crazy for me, a lot of traveling, a lot of intense work, and I actually sat down and relaxed for the first time 2 days ago since the last podcast, and I was really exhausted, and I decided to actually take the day to relax, and instead of trying to throw a podcast out there. So sorry for the delay, but I wanted for you guys to have the best podcast that I could get you. So here we are. We are Thursday, July 27th, and it is actually the pod anniversary. It's been a year today. Yay! So thank you for everyone who supported me and everybody who commented and give me advices and everybody who watches. Your support seriously means the world to me. I would also want to take the occasion to say thank you for any viewers that has stick along and for any viewers that has been subscribing and liking my videos. And if you are a new viewer, well, I really hope that you're going to enjoy this podcast. And let's get started. So for this podcast, for this episode, I will have a little bit of knitting, a little bit of cross stitch, and a little bit of sewing. If you are a returning viewer, the last podcast, and I think the one previously, I'm not too sure, I did talk about the fact that I was sewing myself a dress for the work that I did in July, and I wasn't able to show it to you due to time, and so I wanted to show it to you guys today, and I will tag this along at the end of the episode because I know not everyone is necessarily not necessarily into sewing, and so I will start with the crafty things and then I will finish with the sewing. So today let's start with knitting because this is what I have a little bit more of. I do have my June mystery monthly sock along that we are it's a cal that we're having with this podcast. If you want any information, you can go on the Ravelry groups page and you will have all the information out there. And so these are my socks for the July mystery monthly sock along. They are done. I did finish them in time. It's something that I've kept with me to be able to knit on the plane because I had a lot of planes travel to do in the last 2 months, and therefore this was just a great socks to do on the plane. And so I started it actually the day that I took my first plane trip, and it took me not even a week to actually finish them. It was really simple. And so the yarn is the color Aslan from Lorna's Lace, and the pattern is the slip stitch from La Maison de Saba. One thing to know though is that this is not a sock recipe, this is a pattern recipe. And so I used my normal sock preference for the rest of the sock. So I did a rounded toe, 64 stitches, fish lip kiss heel, and a twisted 1x1 rib. And here it is. Isn't it gorgeous? This was a recommendation from a lovely viewer who left a message on me on YouTube to try this with this colorway. And I have to say, thank you so much. You know who you are. It is fantastic. It was a great pattern to go with this yarn specifically. And so thank you for your recommendation. And if you have any other recommendation, anyone, please go ahead. I'm open to any patterns that you guys really like, that you think I might like as well, and because it ends up doing something like this. And remember, I think it was my March socks that I was trying to do something like that and it didn't work out. And the back was dragging, was higher than the front because of the slip stitch. The slip stitch were kind of like dragging down on my March socks. And so I've just never finished them because I couldn't fix them. I frogged them. And so having a pattern like this is fantastic. I didn't have that dragging, and it's just a perfect stitch recipe, really. there you go. These has been knitting on my 2.5. I have my Chiagu Twist interchangeable that I've used for the toes and the heel, and then I used a 9-inch Chiagu circular for the foot, and I loved it. So I think that the 9-inch circular problem with me that I had in February, I believe, was definitely just the needle for me and not the fact that they were 9-inch circular, because I loved knitting with those 9-inch Chiagu's ones. So I use the metal Chiagu ones because I know they also have a bamboo section as well. I like metal needles, so I used a 9-inch circular metal needle for the foot, for the main body of the foot, of the socks, sorry. And the twist interchangeable. Maybe I need more coffee. I think that's probably an option. I think I need a little bit more coffee. The twist interchangeable metal needle from Chiagu's as well. The cord is fantastic, and I'm really happy that I bought them because I really, really like them. And I'm happy that I bought them separately. I didn't buy the entire kit. I buy the cable that I wanted with the needle that I wanted, and I'm really happy I did that, knowing that I'm most likely not going to use enough of the needles in the kit to actually justify buying them all. But there you go, June socks for the Mystery Monthly Sock Along. Now for the July socks, that has not worked out. We are July 27th and there is no socks. This yarn that I planned for July was more of a sport weight than a fingering weight, and I thought I would be okay with it, and I'm not. I really like fingering for my socks more than a sport. Unless if any of you have an amazing sport weight sock pattern by any mean, please leave me a comment here or on the Ravelry group, and I might give it a try. I think for me it's just, I like fingering socks. And so I started to knit it and I frogged it, and it just never saw the light. And so that's why I'm really, really looking forward to getting my August socks going. It kind of felt weird not having any socks this month. Well, I tried and then I frogged, but it just felt strange not having a sock on the needle. So I'm really looking forward for the August ones in a few days, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to jump on it when it's going to be the time. After that, other thing, let's talk about the cozy memory blanket. I'm not too sure where I was the last time we talked about but I know I was not as further along as I was now, because that was just a good thing when I was home for only 1 or 2 days and I didn't want to take everything out of my suitcases just to work on. That was just a great thing that I took out of my basket that I have beside my couch to just work on while I was at home. And so I'm just going to do a quick reminder of like probably each and every one of them. Simply because I'm not sure where I was the last time, if I showed you just different squares or if they were attached to each other. But yeah. And so this was part of the Mustache Yarn Star Wars series, the 3rd installment, and that was the Boba Fett colorway. This is some Zoberball. That was the Regia Perfect socks that I did in Florida last year. I had a little bit of leftover, so I used it. This is Poppy Yarn and Fiber, sorry. And this was my June socks. This is a yarn that I naturally dyed myself in June. This is Hedgehog Fiber in the typewriter colorway. This is another section of the Mustache Boba Fett yarn. I've put them because they're so different. This is another one that I naturally dyed in June. This is Hedgehog, that was a special club colorway last August. This is the Lorna's Lace, so the one that I've just knitted for my socks. And this was another one that I naturally dyed in June. One thing that I want to mention out is that I really, really like the beige yarn that I'm putting in between everything. For me, it kind of settles everything down a little bit and makes it a little bit less crazy. And so sometimes you see it a little bit more, and then sometimes like over here it kind of gets a little bit more lost. But overall, I really, really enjoy the border that it creates around a collar. It's a little bit more work, but for me it totally pays off. So here we go. I took the tutorial from a Ladybug. I'll put her name down here. She has all the tutorials you need to do a blanket like this with the color in between and like how to fill that little gap here and on the sides and just like how to finish it. And so I took her tutorial to be able to do this cozy memory blanket. So this is another one that is slowly growing, and that will take a while to complete, but I'm okay. This is not something that I want to rush either. And then another thing that I talked about is my friend's baby's blanket, which she's not really a baby anymore. The double knit blanket that I was doing, I've talked about possibly restarting it, and that's what I've done. I've restarted it. I don't have a lot done just because I'm juggling with 4 skeins of balls at the same time, and this is not the kind of project that I can necessarily do everywhere in any kind of situation, like a sock, for example. And therefore, it's not, because I was traveling so much, is not as far as I probably would have wanted it to be, but eventually when I'll be a little bit more relaxed and less busy, this is going to be something that I will be able to knit on for sure. So let me just untwist this. Okay. And so here it is. So I have restarted this. As you can see, double knit effect with the hearts. I only have 1 row done of heart, but I have 1 full row done of heart, and then as you can see, I've started the points of the second row. One thing that I've changed from my first version of this blanket is the border. And so the border I've done, I've just oiled both strands of yarn to do the border as well as on the side. To kind of prevent, because if you remember correctly, if you're a returning viewer, my side was actually kind of opened because I couldn't twist it properly to close it. And so doing it with both strands at the same time kind of prevents that to happen. And so I've done that. And also another thing that I've changed while I was knitting it, I've kind of realized that I still had an issue with my colored side. And so I still had an issue with the color side because my white is being carried along for the border. Everything was kind of closed and fine. But on the colored side, my blue is not being carried over. And therefore, it was kind of creating a gap in which I could put my finger in. And I didn't want that. And I know there's a way to twist yarn to prevent that, but I'm not good enough for it. or clearly there's something wrong I'm doing because it's not quite working for me. And so I've decided to do one stitch along the side of both strand as well, that I will carry on for all the colors to close everything and make it not open, basically. So I frogged everything, I picked everything back up to create this, and then now I'm just going to continue ahead with that. And so here it is, the restart of the double knit blanket. This blanket, I've decided to take my needles down a little bit. So my first version was with a 3.75. I am knitting this one with a 3.5. I'm using my Addy interchangeable set for it, so that's why it's on the cable right now. The needles are not on the cable right now because they're on another project, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. And so my goal will be to finish the other project fairly soon so that I can put my needles back on this and put more time into it. Although the good thing with interchangeable is that it's easy to just take the needles off and just pop it on the other project. The yarn that I'm using for this blanket, all of the yarn is Cascade Sateen worsted. And so right now I have the yellow, I have the blue, and I have the cream. It's not easy to knit with 4 skeins, but I guess it's part of it, right? One thing that I haven't mentioned is my Cozy Memory blanket is knit on a 3.25 needle. The last knitting project that I have to talk to you about is an acquisition and a project. So when I was in Montreal for a little bit, and I went into La Maison Tricotée, which is a great yarn store in Montreal. And the day that I went there, they received some edgog fiber yarn. And I saw a color that I really, really liked, and it's not a color that I would normally be drawn to. And therefore I bought it because since it's not a color that I would normally take, if I really like it, then it means that I really like it. And so I bought some edgog fiber. Both of it is in their sock yarn base. And this is the Dusk colorway. So it's kind of like vintage pink, or like a dirty pink, depending on how you want to call it. And so I just really, really liked it. And so the thing with this is that I am not a pink and purple girl at all. And so when I saw this pink and saw that I really liked it, I knew that I wanted to make something special out of it, so probably a sweater. The thing though is that I knew I didn't want to make a sweater just out of this because I think that would be a bit too much for me. And so I looked for something to pair it with. And the best thing I could came up with was a cream color. And I think that the cream color would really help to pop up that pink. But now the question is, find the good cream color to go with it. Because this is all pink, but as you can see, there's like, it's a little bit darker over here and it's a little bit lighter over there. And so I thought that just a normal cream like this would not necessarily help it. Like, it would be okay. It would be fine, really. It's just me being picky. And so I've decided to go with some other edgog sock yarn in the Silence colorway. So this is a really gorgeous cream, and as you can see, it's a little bit darker over here and a little bit lighter over there. So I thought that those two would just be so perfect together, as they are kind of dyed in the same thought of it's the same color, just a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. And so I've decided to use those two together. And so the sweater that I've decided to do is the breathing space sweater. So I'll put the name down here with the designer. And I know a lot of people are actually knitting it right now. Everybody's kind of, not everyone, but I saw a lot of people knitting it. So it is a top-down sweater. I am on the down edge border. I just need to knit for a few inches, and then I'll do my rib, and then I'll be able to pick up the sleeves and then move forward from there. I've knitted a lot on this when I was on vacation, and it just flew by. The only reason why this sweater is not finished right now is because I've been extremely busy since the moment I came back. So here it is. And so as I mentioned, I'm at the bottom border. Soon I'll be doing the rib at the bottom, and then we'll go to sleeves. But here it is. I really like it. I really like the combo of both colors in it, because they both have a little bit of variation into it. I think it's just perfect. And it's super intuitive, actually, to knit. Everything that is in the pattern kind of repeats itself for a little bit, and so at one point it kind of gets really intuitive into what you have to do. And it's the first time down here that I'm actually just knitting in the round and not doing anything else. In all the rest of the pattern, you need to do a little something here and there, and therefore your attention, it's still on it. It's not just knitting, but it's super intuitive that you know enough. You know that every X amount of row you need to do this and all of those things. So here it is. The only thing that I didn't do, as the pattern said, was the color, because I didn't had the needles for it. So I choose another size of needles. So I'm knitting this with my 3.5 Addy Click interchangeable set, and the color, the rib stitch, was made with 3.25 because I couldn't find a 3. And it was 3.25 or 2.75 that we had at the moment, and I preferred to go a little bit bigger than going a little bit smaller. But the thing that took the most time was to do this. But once it's done, it's flying. So this took about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, not necessarily knitting all day. It's been pretty relaxed, I have to say. And like I say, the only reason why I'm not further along on this is because as soon as I came back, I got into crazy work and just couldn't. I couldn't do any crafts within a couple of weeks. So that's the only reason why I'm not on the sleeves right now. So, yeah, really, really fun knit. I really, really like it, and I can't wait to see it fully complete. Now let's get into cross stitch. And so the only cross stitch project that I've worked so far is the Sweetest Pie Stitch Along from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And here's where I am today. So we had the chocolate cream pie, which was May. Correct, May. And then the lime pie, let me do this. Then the lime was June. And then the blueberry. That's a little bit better. And then the blueberry was July. And so for the last 2 days, my plan is to finish the border of this. So what you see over here, this border, the pie crust border, if I can call it like that. My plan is to finish it all around and then finish all the little accessories that goes in the holes in there. Because I'm at a point where I just wanted to stitch the pies on it, because I know I can stitch the pie in one day, or 2 days depending on how my day goes. And I know that as of August, my time will be a little bit more restrained, if I can say it like that. And therefore, I want to only have the pies and not have to worry about the other things around it. And I also don't want to do the pies and then end up at the end, the pies are done and having to finish all the rest. I kind of want to finish my last pie and be like, yay, it's done. And so I've been stitching on it for 2 days now. I finished the July blueberry pie. I've finished some of the rows as well. I finished this down row. So I finished this down row. I finished the upper row because I think I only had half of it done so far. So I finished those two. I've done the bow and I've started the 2 colors of the border. I've decided to do, I normally do 1 color at a time, but because this kind of follows, one follow the other, I'm doing it both at the same time, and then I just move my Q-snap to another section and then do all of that section, and then, yeah. So here it is. The only thing that I've done that is not fully cross-stitch alike, I don't know how to say it, but normally when you have a variegated color, you take 2 strands out of your floss so that the 2 strands have the same color on it, and then it just goes. All the pictures that I've seen has a big of a difference. Let me grab my wheel of color here. And so as you can see, in this brown, there is some really light shade and really dark shade in it. And so all the pictures of the ones that I've seen that I would assume most likely used just 2 strands taking out of the floss, it was kind of creating a really, really big difference of color within the crust. And because I'm saying crust, that's only because it's how I see it. I see this as a pie crust, as it's going to be the circle all around it. And because of that, I didn't want it to have too big of a difference of color. You can see here, there is a variegation of color into it, for sure. But what I've done is that I've took 1 strand and folded in 2 to have a loop. And therefore, there is some sections that are light, there is some sections that are dark, but there is also some sections that is light over dark. And that kind of creates a great in-between to go from a light to a dark, more than just light and dark. And this is a personal choice. There is nothing wrong with none of the methods. This is just something that I wanted to do, so that I would be a little bit more happy with the variegation of it. But as you can see, you can easily see the variegation in it. and it's still extremely beautiful. It's just less blocks of it. And so for me, this just looks a little bit more like a oven pie crust than anything else. So yeah. So my goal for the next few days actually will be to finish this, finish the borders and the accessories so that I can put it aside and then just take it out when we will be ready for the August pie. So this will be my number one project to work on for the next few days. And then after that, I think that I will be working on my sweater or socks, depending on what I do to get my sweater as much done as possible. I would love to have my sweater done by the end of August. And therefore, if I want that, well, I need to work on it. It goes without saying. And so I will finish this, and then I will move on to my sweater, and then possibly work a little bit on the blanket once in a while. But I think I will most likely work on the blanket when my sweater will be done. So let's talk a little bit about sewing. So I sewed the dress. I was working an event where you need a little bit of a more formal dress outfit, because you don't have to wear a dress. You can wear an outfit, but I like to wear a dress at that event. And so I've done a pattern from, I think it's Betty. I'll put the name down here. She did a collaboration with Butterick. And so it is Butterick. And if I recall correctly, it is 6094. I will confirm it down here. And so it's a vintage looking dress, but still in the Butterick. So it's not extremely complicated. But it's still kind of nice looking. I did it, I mostly did it formal because I need black. I need black for work. And even if there's a little bit of color, most of the dress is black. And so if I need to just cover up and put like a blazer on top of it to hide the color in the back, then it's easy doable, but I still can wear it in other situation, in other work situation. And so it's just a black dress. I've done it with some lace on it. So I've done a layer of lace on top of a black fabric, just because I didn't want it to see the seams underneath the lace. And so my first layer is basically 2 layers of fabric to kind of prevent that. And so the dress is basically, it's just, you have the top of it, and then you have a little middle section that kind of just helps the shaping, and then you end up with a full skirt. You end up with a full skirt. I like full skirt, and it was perfect for the event. I had a slight petticoat underneath it, not too poofy, just a little bit, just giving it a little bit of volume, which was just perfect. And it just has such a nice movement to it. I really like it. I think I choose the good fabric to it to give it a nice swirl. If you want to swirl with it, that would be like a great swing dress. Like the swirl that creates itself, it's just perfect. And what makes the dress is actually the back, because everything is in the back. And so here's the back of the dress. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. I truly, truly love it. And so there's some, it was my first time doing a covered button. The only thing that I didn't quite like with the covered button is that everything is white, and I covered it, but the only part that you cover is the top and not what is actually being attached to your garment. And so when I attached it to my dress, you actually could see when the button was moving, you could see the white little bit underneath it. And I did not like that. And so what I've did is that I've just kind of sewed, hand sewn all around so that it would actually stay close to the fabric and that we wouldn't see that white section. So I've changed that. And the only other thing that I've changed with the dress is that because I knew this would be a work dress more than anything, I've put some pockets into it. And I love it. I really, really do. I love the pockets. I love pockets on everything. And so putting pockets on this dress was definitely a really, really good decision. And the great thing about it is that you don't see that there's pockets on there. Like, you kind of have to know it. When it lays when it lays flat, you kind of see it a little bit just because it's not sewn. But when you have it on you with the poofiness of a full skirt, you don't see it at all. And so I really, really, really like it. I will definitely make another one, probably a little bit more casual than formal in this pattern, because I mean, once again, when the back is out, here we go. This back is just beautiful. And so I may just do another one, definitely more casual that I can wear every day. I may change a little bit of the skirt if I do a more casual one to have a smaller skirt and less of a full skirt, because a full skirt is really beautiful if you have like a little petticoat underneath it to kind of help the volume of this. And if I make it more casual, I'm not too sure that I want to have a petticoat necessarily underneath it. I have another pattern, which is going to be my next dress that I'm going to sew fairly soon. And when I'm going to make that dress, I'll see how the skirt will end up, how it's going to be. And I might actually just merge the two patterns together and take the dress of this new pattern with the top of this one, and vice versa, because I think that the top of the other dress would be really, really beautiful with a nice full skirt as well. And so I may just do a little Frankenstein pattern division over there. The only major thing that I have to say about this pattern is that I do have some sewing classes. Like, I had some sewing classes in the past. I know how to sew, and there is just a few steps that I wasn't quite sure why they wanted me to do it this way. And I guess because I haven't sewn in a long time, I didn't trust myself enough to do it how I knew it. And I did it how the pattern was calling for it. And it was way, way more complicated than it should have been. There's just way easier ways to do what they were asking for. And therefore, definitely when I'm going to make this dress again, I'm going to make it with the notions that I have, knowing that it works and knowing that it can easily work with this pattern as well, and just not complicating myself more than it needs to be, because life is too short for that, and time is valuable. So this is all that I have for you today, guys. And I talked already of the plans for the upcoming weeks are going to be. So finish all the borders and accessories on the Sweetest Pie stitch along from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and keep up with the pies when they come out every month. Work on my sweater. Hopefully will be done by the end of August. We'll see how that goes. Make my August pair of socks when the 1st of August will come around. And sew the second summer dress that I wanted to sew way before in the spring and just didn't have time for it. And so these are going to be the next few things that I'm going to work on, and hopefully I will make it. And we will see on the next episode of this podcast to see if I made it or not. Thank you so much for everyone who watched. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.